Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning for everybody. Nice to meet you another time in our new session with Mr. James Green from America. I first want to welcome Mr. James for accepting our invitation to be with us this session. And also I want to thank you all attendees from all over the world. First of all, let's introduce our guest speaker. Our guest speaker, of course, you know me. I am Shawqia Hawawre, the president of the Arab English Translators Association. I'm from Palestine, and I want to introduce my guest speaker, Mr. James Green. Mr. James Green began his work in education at the UNICEF Library in New York City in 2000. And then he taught English in China, Japan, and online for over 20 years. He's currently the coordinator for adult English language education at Roy's Refugee and Immigrant Self-Empowerment, nonprofit in Syracuse, New York, a community-based organization that assists over 600 new Americans every year. And this is a very great achievement for him. I want to congratulate him. Also, he is the head teacher at James Green's English Classroom, a school offering experiential English language classes, online everyday tuition for free. He enjoys studying philosophy, psychology, and linguistics. And of course, he is the assistant professor of EFL. He's the assistant language teacher. He's an English teacher, of course, and he is leading very successful English courses online. He is Women's Rights Division and U.S. Program Associate and Evaluation Policy and Planning Assistant. Thank you, Mr. James Green, and I want to congratulate you another time for these great and distinguished achievements, and welcome for our webinar. Hope to enjoy with us all our attendees. Now the floor is yours. You can start.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Shawqia, for that lovely introduction. I appreciate that. And I would like to just correct that some of the things that were listed are positions that I have held in the past, which no longer the case. But anyhow, the main ones that were said, you know, I work at a nonprofit in Syracuse, New York called Rise Refugee Immigrant Self-Empowerment, and I also run an experimental school called James Green's English Classroom Online. So the thing that I wanted to come here and talk to you about, the topic is creating meaningful classrooms in a chaotic world. That is a topic that is interesting to me, and I'm hoping may be interesting to some of you since you've come to my presentation. Also want to let you know that my presentation is highly interactive. I work as a teacher, and so when I'm presenting, even as a teacher, I think of it in the same way. Please interrupt me, speak, participate. I'd like this to be a conversation that we're all having together, and especially because I would like what I say to be as relevant as possible to people here who've come here to listen to me and talk to me. I would like to hear from you, what are the specific issues and interests that you have come here to hear about, to talk about, to tell me about, because that, I think, is the best way that I can be of use to you. I do want to tell you about some of the activities I'm engaged in because I think it may be interesting and relevant to English teachers, especially English teachers who are working online, as I think some of you might be doing, maybe not all of you, and just tell you again a little bit of how I got here. I started working at the United Nations. I'm from New York, and I was working in the library. I got interested in doing humanitarian related work, and I thought, I better go abroad, live abroad, have some experience living in a different country. So I moved to China. I was young. I was in my early 20s. I went to China, and I began teaching in rural China in a high school there. Then I moved to Japan, and I started teaching in Japan, and I spent about 10 years in Japan teaching English to students of all ages, from elementary school, junior high school, and then technical college, as well as some older senior citizens in community centers and private individual one-on-one groups, one-on-one students. And from there, I became interested in not just English, but things that relate to teaching that maybe teachers don't often learn about. For example, the psychology of groups. How do groups work? How do groups work most effectively? How do groups develop over time? Because classroom is a group, and the teacher is a kind of leader in a group. And understanding the way in which groups work can help to create a more effective classroom. So I became interested in that topic based on some of the challenges that I had as a teacher starting out, and these are challenges that I continuously hear teachers having. For example, how to manage a classroom when there are students there who may not want to be there. How to manage a classroom when the teacher would like to do one kind of activity, but the school or the curriculum or the laws of where you're teaching require a different kind of activity or relationship to the students. These are not questions of English. These are questions of authority, of psychology, of groups, of relationships. These are not things that you would necessarily learn if you simply go to school to be an English teacher. But they are very useful, and I've found them to be a game changer. They have dramatically changed the way in which I teach, the way I relate to other teachers, and the way I relate to my students. And I now able to have a more effective classroom, and I'm able to enjoy my teaching much more. So if this is a topic that you might be interested in talking about, I would love to talk about that more. Another example of how I use general psychology in my classrooms is the common problem of student anxiety, especially in speaking a foreign language. Students are frightened to speak a foreign language. They're frightened to speak in front of their peers. They're frightened to make a mistake. They're frightened to speak and make a mistake to the authority figure, the teacher. And this is also not a topic of English. The myth that most students have, and maybe even some teachers have, is with improved English ability, the anxiety will go down. And to some extent that is true, but it really misses a really great opportunity here, which is not only to teach students English, but to teach the students valuable life skills, which is dealing with anxiety in public speaking, dealing with anxiety in relationship to classmates, or just general anxiety being a student at a school. You can help your students understand what's going on, but in order to do that, you as a teacher first need to understand what's going on. And what you need to understand is that it's not about language. It's a separate problem altogether. The student may have beliefs about what it means to make a mistake, what it means to speak a foreign language, and these beliefs may not actually be true. But as long as they continue to believe them, that will generate an experience of fear and dread and it will create a serious obstacle to the teacher and to the student in their goal, which is learning English, right? The goal of being an English teacher and having a classroom is to learn English. I hear that there's somebody moving around. I just want to ask that if you're not speaking, you mute yourself. If you want to say something, absolutely feel free. I wonder if you could help me just locate the person off mute.
Yes, I muted him.
Great.
I muted him.
Thank you. So as I was saying, if you understand the mechanism by which anxiety is generated, you can more effectively help students who are anxious to speak. This is not something I learned. I was a teacher for 10 years, and I had no understanding of this. I constantly thought all I needed to do was push on my students a little bit harder. They needed to speak. They didn't know. They didn't want to. And it was my job as a teacher to encourage them to speak. Actually, what I was doing when I did that was making the problem worse. The more I pushed on my students to speak and to, to break the uncomfortable silence, the greater the pressure became. Psychological, right? It's a psychological pressure or perception that there is silence in the room, and the silence is a problem. The silence can be eliminated by the student speaking, and the student doesn't know what to say, and there you've got what I would call an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. You've got a contradiction there that will create a problem. So if you don't want to have that kind of situation in your classroom, you can undo that very easily, actually, by simply taking off that pressure of the students to speak. I never require my students to speak, ever, for anything. If a student wants to sit in the classroom and be completely silent for the entire time, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I have enough confidence, knowledge, energy where I can talk for the whole time continuously. So it's not a problem. That actually takes a huge amount of pressure off of the students. And then I usually have the opposite problem. I sometimes cannot get a word in with my students. My students want to talk so much that I cannot speak because they are constantly interrupting me. And that is a good problem to have. It's not always the problem I want, but more so than thinking, the students are silent, they need to speak, and that's a problem. That's a very exhausting dynamic to be in, to fight with the students about who is talking, wanting them to talk, they don't want to, or they can't talk. So that is a sample of some of the work that I do in my classroom to create what I would call a meaningful classroom. Meaning is something that we create for ourselves. We create meaning for ourselves in our activities, and we create meaning for ourselves in the words that we speak by connecting to what is meaningful to us and knowing how we feel about what we're doing. If we hate what we're doing as a teacher or as a student, that is a kind of meaning. It might not be the kind of meaning we want to create, but it is a kind of meaning. It will fill the vacuum if the teacher or the student cannot create a different kind of meaning. So what do I mean by that? Somebody is unmuted. It's totally fine. Do you want to say something? Or is it just an accident?
Yes.
MA11SM?
Sorry.
It's okay. I think that I don't see a microphone.
I will mute all, and then you can unmute yourself, please.
Yeah.
Yes. No voice. Please, Mr. James, unmute yourself.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me, before I continue, before I go on, let me take a pause here and put the let me put it to you, to the audience. Can you tell me what you heard from what I've said so far, or is there something that you would like to say or a question that you would like to ask so far based on what I've said? Anyone, feel free, unmute yourself and just tell. I would just ask before you tell me whatever you're going to tell me, just please tell me your name and where you are from.
Yes, please. So Mr. James want you to write in the chat box your name and where are you from. Okay.
Oh, not exactly. I would prefer actually if you can write it in the chat box too. It will be easier for me if you use voice. We have a voice opportunity to talk to each other here. Certainly, I can see no one has their camera on, and I don't know if that is for technical reasons, but let me actually check, Ms. Shawqia. Is it possible for participants to turn their cameras on also? Or is it only possible for them to use their microphone?
Yes, I prohibited this, but if you like, I will turn on their cameras also.
Yes, if I would like it to see people's faces. That would be useful for me, and I think more connecting for people. So absolutely, if people want to and can turn on their camera, absolutely do so. And then
now they can open their cameras.
Great. So who would like to start? Just tell me your name, where you're from. If you want to tell me your what kind of position you have as a teacher, that would be meaningful too. And then just tell me what you want to say. Anyone?
My name is Abdul from in Egypt. I'm teacher.
Great. Hello. Nice to meet you. I ask your forgiveness in being able to remember and pronounce your name, but I don't want to waste time on that. So go ahead and just tell me if you heard something that I said that was meaningful. I'm also reading the chat. If you want to write it in the chat, I see hello. I see I would like to know more skills of teaching. Great. My presence has a goal to know more about experiences in the world. Great. We should make children not silence in the classroom, right? That's a comment about what I was saying 5 minutes ago about how to make this classroom interactive. If the teacher is only talking, it's not interactive. If the students are talking, it's interactive. You as teachers can maybe experience what your students experience in your classroom right now.
Yes, Miss Hannah Abbas, you can talk with him, please. Your idea is so excellent. Miss Hannah Abbas, unmute yourself and go ahead, please. Miss Hannah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, please talk.
Hi. Hello, Hannah Abbas.
Hello, doctor. Really, I like gamification for young children, and I like role play for middle ages, 12 till 14. Sometimes I ask them to imitate their teacher or play the role of their teacher, so they like to imitate me or generating new ideas. This makes the class more communicative. So I feel this has a great great idea, and give students meaningful situation through experiential approach. They pass the experience themselves, so they give them the chance to express themselves. They imitate their teacher, so they have more ideas, more chances, more. This is the way I like, and for middle ages.
Yes. So Hanaba, I'm going to say what I heard you say. I'm going to repeat or reiterate, summarize what I heard you say. You like using role play activities, what you call gamification. You're making activities into games for students where they imitate the teacher. They imitate the teacher's speech or behaviors, and that makes the classroom more communicative, and it's more experiential. The students get to experience the language.
A minute, please. You mix the two expressions or the two terms. Gamification is different from role play. Gamifications for young children until age 10, it could be. But role play, I think it is for middle ages. 12, 13, 14. Role play is good for middle ages, but then gamification is good for young children. So they are different expressions. They are two terms different totally. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for correcting me. Now let me see if I have you. You want to be sure that I understand that their two terms have different meanings and different applications. That gamification is something you do for students who are 10 years old or younger, and the role plays are more appropriate for students who are older than 10. Did I get that?
Yes.
Great. So I want to say something about that. I completely agree. Both, gamification is one of my favorite topics. I love games. I love games. All kinds of games, role-playing games, as well as other more typical standard games like board games. The games are a great way, both for children and adults, to learn through fun activities. So we can talk about what gamification is and how to do it more. I want to say also, I agree with you that role-playing may be a little bit challenging to do with younger students. Not impossible, though. I do role-playing with younger students, 6 and 7 years old. It requires a little bit of preparation, but actually young children have an almost natural understanding for make-believe. And if you can show them that you're playing make-believe, they can get into it very quickly. So, but role-playing is, again, like you said, something that I do at all ages. I am a career coach. As I said, with the nonprofit I work with, we offer different services to students, to clients who come to us. They are mainly learning English so they can get a job in New York, just a basic job. And so we give them some help to find a job. And I, as a career coach and English teacher, I do job interview role plays, right? What are your goals for having this job? What are your qualifications for having this job? How would you speak to the interviewers? How would you speak to someone at a job fair? How would you make a phone call and say that you're looking for a job? We can do it all in the classroom as a role play. Do you want to say something?
Yes, I can ask students to play a role in a play. For example, I ask my student to act the character Macbeth, for example, or Shakespeare, or any character from drama. I taught them simplified drama. Okay, this is a part from their curriculum. So I make him imitate the character, so he felt an experience. So this is experiential approach in teaching. Role play is connecting with experiential approach. So the student pass himself with a different experience. He feels the character. He tries to express his feeling about the play or the
Yes.
novel or whatever he study, a short story. We can teach them through role playing in drama, in teaching novel, in teaching stories, in teaching small tales, fairy tales. So we use simplified language to simplify the literature, the English teacher, for example, for students. So role play is an approach using experiential approach. Okay.
Yes.
This is what I wanted to understand from role play. Gamification is another different approach.
Yes.
I can make any unit in my curriculum. I can teach them through a game. I can divide my class into 2 groups, and I can make a competition, and I can put goals for these competitions. I can reinforce them. I can give them rewards. So I can turn any part in my curriculum to a game, to play it.
Yeah.
He is raising his hand. Al-Daif, please. Go ahead.
Hold on a second. Before he speaks, I just want to respond to Hannah about this. One thing about role plays, which I like particularly, is that it is an opportunity to be spontaneous, because language is a spontaneous, conversation is a spontaneous activity, but language is not always spontaneous. If I'm reading a book, for example, that is not spontaneous. Those words are set, and that's a useful skill, to be able to read whatever words are on a page. But there are times when you need to be spontaneous too, and it teaches the difference between set, fixed language or a script, and having the ability to understand and use the set language versus making the transition to making the language the student's own and then applying it. So, for example, many traditional English classroom textbooks have dialogues, right? I'm probably all familiar with this. It has an A-B dialogue, and the students may read the sentences in the dialogue, and they will say, okay, I am Mary in the dialogue. Hello, nice to meet you. Your dog is very, big. Whatever. They will memorize. Sometimes the teachers get students to memorize those sentences or read them aloud, or maybe the whole class will read them aloud. And that is useful. It's useful to have a model. The students get a model of the language that they can then pull pieces out and apply themselves. But if it doesn't go to the spontaneous practice, then the student never learns how to be spontaneous. So it's a good activity to do together with role plays, where you give scripts, examples of natural speech that the students are then taking and picking and using as they like, and then creating a space and saying, okay, now there is no script. Different activity, different expectation. You don't have to spontaneously speak like Shakespeare. You don't have to spontaneously speak like a professional playwright. Just anything, even 1%, which you have taken and made your own, that is extremely valuable, I believe. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say. Somebody else who had their hand up who would like to speak, please go ahead.
Yes, Al-Daif, please go ahead.
Appreciate your efforts, and that's a really great information, a great session. This is Ahmed Ibrahim, and I'm an English teacher, home teacher.
What country are you in, Abdel?
Egypt.
Egypt, great.
Yes. My question.
It's a little hard to hear you. There's some, maybe you're in a vehicle, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm driving now. So my question was about using these games especially after introducing the context of my session or presenting my session. And you know that I work with the kids. So you know that classroom management with the kids is some kind of difficulty, has some kind of difficulties inside the class, especially with these kids or these ages, because I think that most of them are kinesthetic. So that's why they need to get rid of their power or the energy that they have. So my question is, can we use these gamifications or these games at the end of the session as a reward after presenting my context to them? And thank you.
Okay, I love your question. I just want to repeat it. So you are teaching kids, and you find that the issue of classroom management is sometimes a challenge, particularly where you have students who are young, they have a lot of energy, and you're wondering, is it a good idea to use the game as a reward? Is that what your question is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. So that's what I say.
Here's my answer. It's a horrible idea. I know that might be surprising because it's a lot of teachers do this, but I think it's a big mistake to use the activity as a reward. As much as possible, I try to take reward and punishment out of my classroom completely. If I think I'm doing something as a reward or as a punishment, I know I'm off. I'm doing something different. I'm no longer teaching English. Not only am I no longer teaching English, but I am, again, creating a barrier for the student that is really tragic. So what is the alternative to giving a reward? How do we manage the classroom? Because I understand a large classroom of young children is a circus. It is loud. It is their attention is everywhere. They might have no interest in English. It's a real issue. And as much as possible, what I want to do in order not to make it a reward is I want to listen to the students. I want to really hear what is going on for the students. Even the smallest amount of listening to them can make all the difference. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy to be with the students and to really understand them, what their experience is, especially in a government school, in a government classroom, if that's where you're teaching, where they have to be there perhaps for many hours a day. There are things about that situation which are not ideal, yet we work in the reality of the situation. Right? That's the part of my talk which is the chaos. There is chaos. In a school, on the surface, it may seem orderly. It's not actually orderly. It's a kind of chaos where there is a gap between the students and where they are that is not really serving the students. So it's a little bit abstract. Let's see if I can make it more practical. Can you find out what is interesting to the students, where their interest becomes genuine, where they're actually interested in the role play? One way you might do that is by finding out what interests them. And it might come through a few simple questions. So I do role plays, I do it, and my students, they're adults. So it's a different challenge, but still the adults have a huge amount of fun because they write the story together. So with a role play, right, I might say to them, it's a standard role play that I do is, tell me who the characters are, what is the situation, and where are they? Suddenly, you're involving the students, And if the students notice that, if you actually give them a chance to say, oh, they are, you know, we have now, I'm trying to think of an example that a student might think of. Students are sometimes young students are sometimes extremely unpredictable, right? So the student says, oh, well, the first person is a wizard, like a spellcaster, a magic using character, and the second character is a magic dragon. Well, whatever it is, if you give them the ability for language, suddenly you're working with English. The student is now curious because they are creating the story. You're giving them an opportunity to shape what is happening in the classroom. The more power the student has to shape what is happening in the classroom, the more they are invested, involved, and therefore interested. So don't make it a reward, make it the primary activity. Make the reward learning English. If it's actually interesting to them to learn English, it doesn't have to be a reward. The thing that you were going to do at the end becomes the central activity, and then the students know it's important. If it's just a reward, actually it sends the message that it's not important, that it's a kind of add-on. And the students are looking for the meaning. They're looking for what is important, the core. And if you tell the students, well, doing something that you don't like, that is boring and is too difficult, and you don't have a say in it, if you're telling them that that's the central activity, then of course you're going to have a classroom management problem, because who wouldn't hate that?
Yes.
Can somebody tell me what I said? I see you, Claudette. Hi, Claudette. Welcome. I see some people I know, I think, maybe. Fatima, if that's my Fatima that I know. Anyhow, but anybody who would like to either tell me what you heard me say as an answer to Abdalf in Egypt, or if you have a different point or question, please go ahead.
Yes, there is Miss Awatif wants to ask in the chat box. She wrote, may I ask a question? Miss Awatif, please go ahead. Miss Awatif? Awatif Abdelkawi. Yes.
Yes,
Now,
thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you for the webinar.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. James. Really, I have nothing to add for my colleagues. I have followed the chat, and all the comments are the same ideas, the same strategies and methods for teaching using games and role play. It's all around the world used like.
You broke up, Sawati. Your connection is not very good.
I put in the chat now is, where can I find session? That's it.
Where can you find what? You broke up. I heard you say that this activity of role plays, it's common. Many people do it all around the world. That's true. And then you said something, you would like to know where to find the session. Are you wondering where to find my classes?
No, she meant, as I understood, this session. Where can I find the record? Yes.
Got it.
You are.
Is it true?
This webinar, it is recorded.
Yes, of course, of course.
Yeah.
I sent you my links. You can follow them, and also the YouTube. I will upload this recording, and you can find it and take it. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Thank you for the tips and the ideas you are sharing with us.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just so you know, just so we know, we have a time frame. I will be here for another about 30 minutes. We can keep talking for 30 more minutes. So I'm happy to.
Hello, Dr.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. James. Rada from Egypt. How are you?
Hi. Great. Hi, Reda from Egypt. Welcome.
I think you spoke about role play and the importance of role play in our classes, especially in primary stage. Okay, I am teaching at primary stage. I make a role play every day. I make a play for students to make a difference between long adjective and the short adjective. For example, some students read about short adjective and another read about long adjective. They play a play in the class. It was very good. Some students say, hello, do you know me? Yeah, you are a short adjective. Yeah, I am a short, not long adjective, but I am very important. How? I can describe some verbs. I can describe someone or something, and so on. It was very helpful, and the students were very happy with this.
Fantastic. So you're saying that you use role plays all the time. You used it with young students. You're giving an example of a role play where it was teaching the idea between long and short adjectives. Great.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have an example of using role plays or of a comment or question they want to bring in?
Yeah, this is Claudette from Mexico. I didn't know what happened with my microphone. I couldn't activate it. That's why I couldn't speak. Yes, the role play for the students is a great opportunity for them to speak, but they are not the real. What I find about the conversation when one is letter A and one is letter B and so on, I found like for them it's useful because they have the opportunity to speak, but it's not meaningful. And what I mean about that is not meaningful is because they are just reading about the author's words and the way they are communicating. So when they come in the real platform, like you are doing in the classroom every day, and the practice is totally different because you're experiencing feelings, involving more, understanding more the language. And that is the beautiful part. So I am trying to adopt that kind of teaching in my classroom, and I get a lot of fun, so I enjoy a lot. So you're making a real revolution of teaching, and I love that. So I feel it's very useful techniques that are you expanding about other teachers for the way of learning from you and then applying to the students, and the students get a lot of fun once you really use and make it meaningful to the students. Thank you. Back to the group.
So happy to hear that. Anyone else want to mention how they use? Yeah, who's speaking?
Hello. Yeah, Hana is speaking.
Hanasa?
Hana Abbas is speaking.
Hana Abbas, go ahead.
Concerning the part of classroom management, how we can teach in a circus, this is completely is refused. The teacher manage everything in the learning environment before the beginning of teaching a process. I can divide my class into groups. Each group have at least 4 or 5 students, and each student has a role to do. They have tasks. They have the group leader. So I give them names. This is the moon group, the sun group, the stars group. So they know their name of the group, and each one in the group know his role in the group. Okay, and they exchange roles. This week, this is the leader. The next week, there's another leader. So during the month, all the students become leaders. I manage the setting of the class. I make them sit in groups or sit like you letter. So everything in the learning environment should be good for the learning process before I began. This is a part. The second part is Gamification.
Wait. Hanabis, before you go to your second part, can I see if I understood your first part?
Yes.
Yeah, so the first thing you want to say is that you're asking, how can you teach in a circus? You can't teach in a chaotic circus. The teacher's job is to manage every element of the learning environment for the purpose of learning. And that's what you do with all manner of techniques, like breaking the students into groups, giving them instructions about what to say, or even physically, you tell them, this is how you're going to move. You're going to put your bodies in the, make the shape of the letters of the alphabet. And you're managing each step along the way so that what the students are doing is for the purpose of learning, rather than
Yes,
chaos.
sure.
Yeah? Okay, great. Okay, so I think I understood your first point. Go to your next point.
Sure. The second part concerning gamification activities, it can't be at the end of the class. It should be at the beginning. So I tell my students that they will be again today, and they learn all the learning processes again. Young children learn through fun activities. They don't want to sit in a desk. They wanted the class to be communicative. They wanted to laugh. They wanted to sing. They have energy. Okay, still young children have energy. I sometimes, when I teach for this young ages, I don't sit at the classroom. I talk them and go to the playground. They make another activities. They learn in air. It's very, very amazing, and it's have very positive effect in their psychology. Psychological part is very important for this age. Okay, this is about my experience. Thank you for listening to me.
Great, Hanabi. So this is what I heard of your second point, is that you don't bring the games in at the beginning, at the end. You bring them in at the beginning, because young children love to learn through fun. They like to laugh, they like to sing, they like to be outside in the open air. They have a lot of energy. You take them to the playground, and all of this makes it possible for you to attend more to their psychological and educational needs.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Again, I totally agree. If you have the ability to do that, to take your students out into the open air and to play games with them and sing and all of these things, wonderful. Sounds really meaningful and fun.
Yes, now the floor is yours, Mr. Hussein. Go ahead, please. Mr. Hussein.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Hussein. Where are you from? Are you in Egypt as well?
Yeah, I'm from Egypt.
And what kind of teacher are you? What age group or what?
I am a primary student teachers and a preparatory student teacher.
Oh, right. So what issues did you come to my talk with an interest in?
Well, I have an experience. I had an experience 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Once I made an experience about using active learning techniques in teaching English. And I used role play, games, and songs in teaching English, and teaching listening and speaking for primary students. and I want to tell you that it was a fruitful experience.
If it was fruitful, I'm surprised that it was only 5 years ago. Is it something you're also using now as well in your teaching?
Yeah, I'm still using it till now. But the beginning of the experience was 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. So it was a discovery then that changed the way you taught about 5 years ago to bring in some of these active learning techniques.
Yeah.
And they've been useful and you're using them now. Wonderful. Yeah, we learn whenever we learn, we have our, discovery, and then it changes, and then we can begin to apply, continue to use, these tools. We can't use them until we discover them.
Yeah, that's right.
Wonderful. I actually went to school for writing. I've always been interested in writing, and I was interested in writing screenplays, like movie stories, when I was in college, and I took some classes on screenwriting. And now I use some of that knowledge in teaching English, so that we do not just a role play, but what's called a long form role play. So we do one scene, and the students think of the story. They think of the characters and the relationship and the place and the events. And we do that, and they practice using English in that space. And then they stop. And then we do another story, but we connect it to the first, because that continuity helps to create meaning. If it's changing all the time, it's hard to connect to the meaning. And there are some textbooks where page after page there is no connection. This page is I'm learning about eating breakfast, and this page is about going to the park, and this next page is about going to the doctor. But if you can create some continuity, some connection throughout, it becomes more meaningful, as you might imagine, for adults who like to read stories, and they have their favorite characters, and then reading a novel, and then there's a sequel. They want to find out what happens next. So if you can make a connection between the role play that you did last week and the role play you did this week and the role play you didn't do next week, so that the students are now anticipating, we have this character, whatever it is, Billy, the friendly yellow dragon, and last week he ate the doctor, and this week he was making friends in the park. What's going to happen next time? Suddenly there's a reason, there's an additional reason to be interested. So that requires a little bit of forethought, maybe even not just forethought, but just the understanding that has value. So we did that in an activity in a role play class I did a few weeks ago, and it was a discovery for the students that then we could write not a movie, but a series of scenes that had connection, and it made the story more interesting. And once the story became more interesting, the class became more interesting. Over to you. I see some hands up. Hussein Al-Qassas or Dr. Khalud Amouche. Would you like to say something?
He talked.
Okay. Good evening, all. Good evening, Doctor.
Hello. Yes, I can hear you. Is this Dr. Khalud Amouche?
Yes, it's me.
Hi.
Hi, Doctor. First of all, the topic actually is about, as a teacher, which type of activities I use in teaching. And one of them seems to be the role play. Well, I'd like to share you my experience even teaching English for the university level. You will see that is it happens that is from time to time when I'm talking about undergraduate students terms
Yes, sorry for interruption.
it is one of the things that
Can you hear me, Dr. Khulud? Sorry for interruption, but please try to fix your voice. There is some mess. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Try again. Maybe just slow down a little bit, but try again.
Yes.
Go ahead. Dr. Khulud, go ahead.
Yes, till she returns, we can hear Mr. Hassan, and she will continue after fixing her voice. Yes, please, Mr. Hassan, go ahead. Mr. Hassan Jad. Mr. Hassan, can you hear me?
Oh.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Hassan Jad. I'm from Egypt. I graduated from Al-Azhar University from Language and Translation Faculty. Actually, I'd like to greet you, Ms. Shawqia, and you too, Mr. James. It's great to hear from you. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Is there something? Is there
okay, do you hear
issue?
Me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks. In fact, there are a lot of different ways to teach my students. But if I really want them to connect with lesson and not just memorize facts or numbers, one of the best way to teach them with the interactive classroom activities. Interactive classroom activities are activities that forego one-way communication or individual learning in favor of getting students involved and engaged with the lessons or material. Interactive classroom activities can allow students to understand what they are learning more successful, also on a deeper, more integrated level, which can make the classroom experience a more successful and rewarding one, I think. I always wanted to make my classroom more interactive and engaging. So one of the greatest ways to get that is brainstorming sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, I can go ahead brainstorming.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you. Just let me know when you're done. I can hear you.
Yes, brainstorming sessions. Especially I teach students who are from 15 to 18 years old. So I think brainstorming is very suitable. So group brainstorming sessions for me are a great way to bring my students together, to engage with whatever they are learning. And instead of thinking about the topic alone at their desk, they get to expand their ideas with other students, which will help them be more engaged and gain a new perspective into the lesson, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Hassanjad, what I hear for you, you're a teacher in a language and translation university, and your your method of moving away from memorization is to make the classes as interactive as possible. One way you do that is through brainstorming. Bringing in the knowledge of the class of the students into the classroom. Knowledge and creativity, I suppose. So I love that, and the interactivity is essential. And I find that the biggest barrier, the biggest barrier to interactivity is listening, and not for the students to listen to me, but for me to listen to the students. That is the biggest barrier. You know, if you think about like a stereotypical teacher standing in front of a classroom, I don't know about you, but my idea of a stereotypical teacher in a TV show, in a story, in a movie, is a person standing in front of the classroom, yelling at the students saying, "Listen to me," right? That is the archetypical teacher, right? The teacher is like, "You're not listening to me." That is the exact opposite of an interactive classroom. The way you create interactivity is by listening to the students, not forcing them to listen to you, because the teacher has all the power. The teacher has all of the power to decide what's happening, to call on this student or that student, and the students know it, and that is their experience through school. From the time that they start school to the time they finish, they are following the instructions of the teacher. They're that's what they are trained to do. And if we turn that upside down within a container, not to open the door and say go and burn down the school, but if you do it within the container of the classroom and you listen to the students, that is the spark that where the interactivity really begins. And brainstorming is a great way to do that. You know, you're bringing in the knowledge of the students, and then you're directing it. What is the brainstorming for? You know, is it a brainstorm for characters in a story? Is it a brainstorm for how to find a job? I mean, you can use brainstorming. Brainstorming is just a fancy term for accessing the group's collective creativity, which is very powerful if you really allow that door to open. Great. So glad to hear from you, Hassan Jad, and to know that we agree. I just have a question. There's 4 minutes left, but I still feel the need to. I just want to really quickly ask: is there anyone here who does not like interactive classrooms? Is there anyone here who thinks an interactive classroom is a bad idea, or listening to the students is a bad idea? I heard a hint of that in not to point anyone, not to single anyone out, but the teacher who said you cannot teach in a circus. To me, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, some educators believe that if we make our classes more interactive, it will be chaos.
Yes, I know that. I know that there's some out there, but what I actually want to know is, can we find one of these rare creatures here? Is anybody willing to stick up for the "I want more order" group? And I see somebody has a hand up. Fatemeh, would you like to speak?
Hello. Yes, thank you. I just want to share, first of all, I want to thank for this webinar. Thank you so much for this productive, informative session. It's amazing. And I just want to share my experience on playing a game in my class. If there's time left, I can share.
You can finish up. After you, we're gonna end. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm teaching 30 students in a class, and sometimes I feel that students feel boring when the class turned to teacher-centered class, and I start teaching grammar directly to them. Then I feel that it's not the class that I like. It's not an interactive class, and I changed my method to playing a game. And the game is when a student come in front of the class and telling two stories, which is one of them is true and one of them is fake, and then it's kind of two experience as a form of a story, and then the student should recognize, the class should recognize which story is true and which one is fake, and it helps the student to be more happy, more energetic. Their face is not long more, and they like to participate. One of the students summarized the speaker in front of the class because not all of the students are at the same level. So after summarizing, all the students have this idea that recognize by the body gesture and by the expression of the speaker, of that student speaker, which story is true and which one is wrong or fake. And then the student who win comes in front of the class and make two other stories,
Fatima?
which is one.
I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt you, but I heard that what happened to you is that you were listening to your students because you were teaching grammar. You listened to the fact that they had long faces and it was boring, and you also actually listened to yourself. You found it boring. Listening includes yourself, and so then you changed it up by doing this a different twist on the grammar to get them to work with the grammar, and then you enjoyed it much more, and they, I think it sounds like, enjoyed it much more. So great, thank you for your example. I think that that's a great example of the effect that listening to yourself or to the students can have on creating a meaningful classroom. I want to leave it there because we could talk about this more, and I hope we have a chance to do that, but for today, that's good enough. I'm going to say goodbye. If you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook, James Green's English Classroom. I hope that Miss Shawqia will share the links to my classroom. I gave her links, and you can connect with me, Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook. We have a YouTube. My class has a YouTube channel. You can see some of my the way I teach online if you're curious. Anyway, thank you so much for being here today. And I wish you the best of luck in the rest of in your teaching wherever you are. Over to you, Miss Shawqia.
Thank you, James.
Yes, thank you, Mr. James. It was really very amazing and fabulous session. Thank you very much. And from here, from the Arab English Teachers Association, we are honored to award you the certificate of appreciation for your recognition and outstanding contributions and delivering this lecture, which was titled Creating Meaningful Classroom in a Chaotic World. Thank you very much. It was very useful, very helpful, and very interactive. And also, I want to thank you another time for joining us, and hope you to hope that we will have you another time. I won't forget to thank all the attendees from all over the world, and I appreciate them all and hope you best of luck. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really, I'm honored. Goodbye, everyone.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Yes, I will share. Yes, I will share Mr. James' links here in the chat box and in my WhatsApp groups in order to follow him. Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
If there is any question now.
Thanks, Mr. James.
Yes,
thank
for
you.
me. Thank you. Thank you. If there is any question, please fill the form for certificate. Don't leave without filling it. And check your email because you will find your certificate immediately after you fill the form. Okay?
I have a
Sorry, Ms.
question.
Shawqia.
I'm going to type it in the chat, my email, so you can send it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shawqia.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome all. Welcome all. Here I put also Mr. James links. You can follow him if you like on Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp, etc. Also, I will put another time my links in order to follow me and them. Okay. Thank you for joining
I didn't
us.
see the form.
Yeah.
I
Where is the
participate
form?
from the start.
Yes, I will.
The form of the
I will.
certificate.
Yes, I will
The
give it
Facebook
another time.
didn't
Yes.
work. Okay.
Didn't work? No, it works. And I will show you the certificates that arrive. Look here.
Ms.
Wait a
Ghada
minute.
Bukura. Okay.
Yes, Miss Ghada. Wait a minute. Let's look here. You see, all the certificates for those who filled the form arrive here in the drive. Just fill it correctly, write your name, email, and check your email or your spam. Then you will find it immediately. Look here.
I didn't
Those
see
are some.
it.
Okay, I
Some
didn't receive
problems in the chat box.
So maybe
Yes,
you
I
can
send it.
Oh, thank
I
you.
send it.
So much. I really
I
appreciate
send it now.
it.
I send it now. Yes.